Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX and I'm Megha Sharma. India has spoken at the United Nations and cleared Pakistan's disinformation on the Indus Water Treaty. India told the United Nations its decision to place the Indus Water Treaty with Pakistan in abeyance, which was a well-considered move emphasizing Pakistan and not India, that violated the agreement. India's United Nations representative Harish dismissed Pakistani disinformation, citing repeated cross-border terror attacks, including the recent Pahalgam incident, as the key factors for India taking this decision. He stated that India entered the treaty in 1965 in good faith, but Pakistan violated its spirit through 3 wars and thousands of terror attacks, costing over 20,000 Indian lives. Ambassador Harish noted fundamental changes over 65 years, including escalating security concerns and demographic shifts. He highlighted that despite the advancements in dam technology, Pakistan has consistently blocked infrastructure changes permissible under the treaty, even attacking the Tulbul Navigation Project in 2012. India has repeatedly sought discussions on treaty modifications, but Pakistan's obstructionist approach prevents India's full utilization of legitimate rights. Therefore, the treaty remains in abeyance until Pakistan, which is a global epicenter of terror, credibly and irrevocably ends its support for cross-border terrorism.
Mr. President, I am constrained to respond to the baseless allegations of the representative of Pakistan on a number of issues. First, India has experienced decades of Pakistani-sponsored terrorist attacks across our borders. This has ranged from the horrific 26/11 attack on the city of Mumbai to the barbaric mass murder of innocent tourists in Pahalgam in April 2025. The victims of Pakistani terrorism have been predominantly civilians, since its objective has been to attack our prosperity, our progress, and our morale. For such a nation to even participate in a discussion on protection of civilians is an affront to the international community. Second, Pakistan has repeatedly used a civilian cover to advance the cause of terrorism. We just recently saw senior government, police, and military officials pay respects at the funeral of noted terrorists targeted by Operation Sindoor. A nation that makes no distinction between terrorists and civilians has no credentials to speak about protecting civilians. India entered into the Indus Water Treaty 65 years ago in good faith. The preamble of the treaty describes that the treaty was concluded in a spirit of goodwill and friendship. Throughout these 6.5 decades, Pakistan has violated the spirit of the treaty by inflicting 3 wars and thousands of terror attacks on India. In the last 4 decades, more than 20,000 Indian lives have been lost in terror attacks, the most recent of which was a dastardly targeted terror attack on tourists in Pahalgam last month.
Joining me on the telecast is Ambassador Kanwal Sibal. Thank you so much. My first question, sir, to you about the statements that have been made by India's permanent representative to the United Nations, Harish. He's called out Pakistan for sponsoring terrorism that has targeted Indian civilians for decades, more than 20,000 of them killed, whether it is the 26/11 Mumbai attacks or the Pahalgam April 22nd, 2025 attacks. Pakistan being a non-permanent member of the UNSC this year, does it have any impact or any veto against India in what is being played out in the UNSC, and even before that, the closed door consultations that had taken place earlier at Pakistan's behest?
Look, this issue of Pakistani terrorism against India is a long-standing one. And we've made very strong speeches in the UN for many years. So this is not the first time that we are outlining what Pakistan has been doing with regard to inflicting terror mayhem on India for decades. In fact, we've made stronger statements than this in the past. The difference is that the world is now recognizing more the fact that Pakistan links with terror are a reality, and they are not trying to obfuscate that or disregard that. The UN Security Council's press statement that came after the attacks in Pahalgam is very clear in this regard, because they have not only very strongly condemned terrorism, but also asked for those who were responsible for this attack to be brought to justice. Now, the unspoken thing in that is that the only people who can be brought to justice, the only way to bring them to justice is either India takes the kind of action it did and attacked terror hubs, or Pakistan identifies them, tries them publicly, and satisfies the international community that these people have been dealt with in accordance with law. Now, so the fact that what I'm underlining is that the international understanding and support of our problem with Pakistan is much greater than before. However, no country is openly going to support India's military action against Pakistan, because then there are fears that this may go out of hand, it may escalate, China may get involved, or the nuclear weapon could be potentially used if it goes out of hand. And therefore, all of them will advocate restraint and dialogue and a peaceful solution to differences and this and that. Even our friends have done that. If you look at the G7 statement, you look at French, German, or other statements, they're all along the same line. Strong condemnation of terrorism without linking it to Pakistan. But of course, everybody knows that at the back of the mind, Pakistan is being considered the source of this terror, but restrained, so that they don't want to have another conflict in addition to what's happening in Ukraine and in the Middle East. The other very important thing, which is not part of the question you asked me, but I was hearing earlier what was said about the Indus Water Treaty, that no one has criticized or even commented on India's step to hold this treaty in abeyance, in the context of the fact that because of climate change, there are water issues now emerging in various parts of the world. And this is a very sensitive area in our part of the world, where Himalayan glaciers are melting. There is reduction of flows into the Indus Valley Basin. And yet, nobody on this sensitive issue has said anything about it, perhaps barring Turkey in a very small, indirect way. So I think we are making headway with regard to focusing on Pakistan for its terrorist activities. But for us to expect that the international community will back kinetic action against Pakistan, even though some of them will be satisfied that we have done this, would be expecting too much. Now, the problem here is the American attitude. And that is very unfortunate, because United States has gone out of its way. Trump has gone out of its way to shield Pakistan.
I'll come to America and US President Donald Trump's camaraderie that seems to be increasing as the days pass by with the Pakistani leadership. But the question about the United Nations, and India had approached the UNSC 1267 Sanctions Committee to designate the Resistance Front, which is an offshoot of the Lashkar-e-Toiba, as a terrorist organization. We have been pushing this agenda for the last 2 years now. How long do you think it is going to take for the UNSC to take cognizance and take the action and declare the TRF as an offshoot of the LET and designate it as such?
I don't think we'll get an easy solution. If you remember, how long did it take us to declare Jaish-e-Mohammed a terrorist organization? I believe it took us 10 or 12 years. And China always blocked this. And in the case of the Resistance Front, as you know, initially in the document prepared by the UN Security Council with France as the lead, included a reference to the Resistance Front. But Pakistan maneuvered, obviously with the support of China, to get this out, because the Resistance Front is linked to Pakistan, and they didn't want to accept any indirect linkage to Pakistan. So I think they'll continue, both Pakistan, so long as it is in the Security Council, will not allow this with the support of China. So we shouldn't hold out any hope that the Resistance Front would be declared a terrorist organization under 1267. And I am not even sure today that United States will give us the kind of support we want on designating the Resistance Front as a terrorist organization. Some other countries may support us. France certainly would, but the US attitude would be important, and garnishing and mobilizing that kind of support within the UN Security Council, with China being ready to block this, I think it will be a tall task. So we shouldn't be very optimistic about this.
The External Affairs Minister was on his tri-nation Europe tour, and he's on his last leg in Germany. He's spoken to a number of foreign press outlets explaining India's stand against Pakistan-backed terrorism. Do you think, has India bettered itself in its global outreach program, and do you think it is helping India considerably in sending out the message that we intended to?
Well, earlier on we were ourselves quite reticent in engaging in this kind of visible diplomatic action to pinpoint Pakistan's involvement with terrorism and the fact that we've been victim for so many years, because we didn't want to internationalize India-Pakistan issues and hyphenate ourselves with Pakistan, because that diminishes us. But I think this time we have changed our thinking and approach, and we've sent out these parliamentary delegations. The External Affairs Minister has been very active in Europe in stating our case. I think boosted by the fact that we took strong military action. Remember, the other countries, whatever they may think, they have noted India's new self-confidence and its military capacity to take on Pakistan. So we were the victim, but this time we have punished the perpetrator of the terrorist attacks in a very major way, demonstrably, to the international community. So they are going to take whatever we say on this matter much more seriously than before. So that helps us in terms of our approaching the international community to sensitize them about what Pakistan is doing in the background, which they understand that India can do this again if Pakistan does not stop. And therefore, there's an obligation on their part to also counsel Pakistan and restrain Pakistan, because Pakistan has always been dependent on the international community for sustenance, both military as well as economic.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think India is now approaching the international community with a new sense of self-confidence, and not that earlier reticence that if we talk too much about our problems with Pakistan on the international stage, we are in a sense equating ourselves with Pakistan and diminishing ourselves unnecessarily.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But that's exactly what has happened, because after that ceasefire was announced and prematurely by US President Donald Trump, now it's one thing him not calling out Pakistan for sponsoring terror against India. In the past few months, if we take a look at his transactions and interactions with the Pakistani leadership, he has handed over $400 million grant to maintain its F-16 fleet. He signed a lucrative deal with the Pakistani leadership to further his crypto businesses. He's thanked Pakistan for handing over the ISIS-K terrorists. This happened in March. He has once again gone ahead and hyphenated India and Pakistan and spoken about mediating and finding a solution to Kashmir, which is completely detrimental to the narrative that India has put out, that it is an internal issue, it is a matter of sovereignty for India, and it is to be dealt with between both the countries of India and Pakistan. No third-party intervention is required. What is the reason for Trump's increasing camaraderie with Pakistan?
It's very difficult to understand this and rationalize it, because look, Pakistan, United States trade with Pakistan is only $7.4 billion. The trade with India is $200 billion. So the economic stakes that United States has in Pakistan are nowhere near the kind of stakes he has in India. And we have agreed, when Prime Minister visited US in February, that our target would be to increase this trade to $500 billion by 2030. And this apart, the kind of investments that are coming from the United States into India, the technological tie-ups that are being created, the global capability centers that are sprouting in India, largely involving American multinationals, show that the stakes that the US multinationals have in exploiting to the hilt India's human capital is very much a factor which will continue to inform the attitude of the US business towards India, notwithstanding what Trump says. Number two, Trump is applauding the great leadership of Pakistan. I don't know what he has in mind. I mean, he was very close to Imran Khan, and Imran Khan is in jail. So is he approving now the fact that Imran Khan is in jail? And you see this fellow, the General Asim Munir, now has declared himself a field marshal. And and Trump has been making these statements after he's declared himself a field marshal. So therefore, does America today support the greater militarization of Pakistan's polity, with greater role for the armed forces and the military at the cost of the democratic leadership? Is that what he has in mind? Now, with regard to some of the things that we hear from in the press about, some people close to him, and Steve Witkoff's son also being engaged in some potential joint ventures with Pakistan.
Yes.
But Pakistan's contribution to all this, given the state of its economy and other problems they have, is very limited. So I don't understand, even from that point of view, that this should determine what the kind of position Trump is taking by equating India and Pakistan. And finally, while we should deplore what is happening, let us be very clear on the fact that no matter what United States position is, there isn't going to be any hyphenation between India and Pakistan. Mm-hmm. Number two, there's no question of any mediation by United States. India will not accept it. Yeah. Whatever the tools and pressures that Trump may have in mind are not going to work.
Yeah, and so I think that's been amply clear by the Foreign Secretary when the first statement of the Indian government came, the announcement of the ceasefire after the DGMO level talks happened between Pakistan and India. Thank you, Ambassador Sybil, for joining me, sharing your thoughts. I'm also being joined by Ambassador Basuti Mukherjee. Ambassador Mukherjee, a very important aspect that was touched upon by Ambassador Sybil was that United States of America continues to support the militarization and economic capability of Pakistan, whether it is about doling out funds for its F-16 fleets, or for that matter, using IMF to provide those bailouts and $1 billion loans. There has been this visit that was being made by the IMF staff in Pakistan, which is completed. They have once again come out and defended the bailout that was given to Pakistan, saying Pakistan fulfilled all criteria. The second review, they said, is going to happen in the second half of 2025, but it is going to be equally futile, is what it appears to be. How should India tackle this double-edged sword where India wanting to cut off all funding that comes to Pakistan, which gets funneled into these terrorist organizations, which this again puts India in peril, and at the same time tackling the likes of United States of America and Canada and IMF that are clearly not working for India's interest, or for that matter, global interest.
Megha, thank you for having me on your show. I wanted to add to what Ambassador Sybil had said, which is that as a non-permanent member of the Security Council, Pakistan is going to chair the Security Council in July. As long as it is on the Security Council, and as long as China remains permanent member of the Security Council, I don't see any hope of putting Pakistan back on the grey list. As far as Operation Sindoor is concerned, it's been a huge victory for India, except in one particular case, which Ambassador Sybil has outlined, and I'd like to elaborate, which is that it has resulted in a lasting damage to the India-US strategic partnership because of the unfortunate, mercurial, and unpredictable behavior of the American president, who has, on one hand, brought back hyphenation, he has lied about negotiating a ceasefire, he has talked about the fact that the two countries should do trade instead of fighting. He has talked about a 1,000-year war between India and Pakistan, demonstrating that no history and no geography is taught in schools in the United States across. Because after all, we must remember that Bush, when 9/11 happened, asked, what is the capital of Afghanistan? Which shows what great general knowledge American presidents have about the world. And the fact that he continues, that he persists in trying to equate the leaders of India and Pakistan, that he does not understand that India is a very important strategic partner and balances out the strategic interests of United States in this region, means that he has also demonstrated to the Indian public, which hitherto was a strong supporter of the India-US strategic partnership, that under Trump's erratic remaining 4-year term, we would be indeed foolish to expect anything from him and from the US administration. But in the country of Chanakya and a 7,000-year civilization, what is 4 years after all? 4 years is nothing. In that respect, I agree with the Chinese. Those who come from a long history, culture and civilization, we will have to live out these 4 years as a blimp or a blurb or an unfortunate point, black point in the India-US strategic partnership, and just keep our heads down. And I am sure that after his term is over, we would be able to get back to normal. In the meantime, we must understand that a US president who is also obsessed about getting Nobel Peace Prize and therefore insisting on ceasefires and thrusting it down the throats of his strategic partners without understanding why Operation Sindhu took place in the first instance, also demonstrates that nothing has changed since 1962, when we stared at the Chinese infiltration and war. India was alone in 62, it was alone in 65, it was alone in 71 when the Americans threatened to destroy Kolkata Harbour. We are alone today. That's fine as far as we are concerned, Megha. We are a big country. We know our responsibilities. We are alone. We will win because it's a right war. We will win the war. Megha.
Very well said, Ambassador Mukherjee. And I'm going to come back to you, Professor Madhav Nalapeth, again. Do you think the tensions that have emerged because of what Trump has been doing and saying, which is detrimental to the stand that India has taken, detrimental to the cause India is fighting against the terrorist organizations that find safe havens in Pakistan, is going to spill over to India and United States Trade Association, bilateral relations as well?
Well, Megha, it's a very good question. And may I say that President Trump is the kind of person who listens to those who whisper in his ear, those who have access to the Oval Office, or those who have access to his Mar-a-Lago residence. And they're a very motley crowd of people. I mean, he's hosting 200 crypto millionaires who donated to his crypto meme. And heaven knows the kind of people from all over the world who are coming. It's a good way for Chinese. It's a good way for countries actually hostile to the US to have a seat at a dinner where the president is the host. It's quite a, I mean, so as far as Trump is concerned, he listens to the voices around him, and it's very clear there are still some very pro-Pakistan, pro-jihadi voices around President Trump. There's no doubt about it. And he doesn't go by any data or any information or anything. He relies on these whisperers, and these whisperers have complete access, and whatever they say goes as presidential language. Of course, I would like to say that the India-US relationship is not dependent on the US president, but on the entire administration of the US. And may I say that in my view, of course, we have been very forthright. The Prime Minister has been forthright. The External Affairs Minister has been very forthright in a way that previous predecessors of theirs have not been. But the reality of the situation is that the India-US relationship is getting along fine. For example, the level of Defense Secretary, the level of even, Secretary of State has got to parrot some of the things that Trump says, so has the Vice President. But I know that they are well aware of the ground situation, both of them. Now, Trump is not bothered about ground situation. He wants a soundbite. He wants something on television that can play on television. That's the kind of person he is.
But then he's also hampering India's trade interests, because yesterday when he makes a statement that if iPhones are to be produced in India or anywhere else, there will be a 25% tariff that will be levied on Apple. Now, I do not know where Trump was all these years when Apple was manufacturing cheap iPhones in China. So it becomes really difficult to understand how Trump is going to maintain a relationship with India when it comes to economics and trade, when he is going ahead and threatening sanctions which are detrimental to India's interest, where India has put in billions of dollars for these manufacturing plants to be set up here.
Megha, quite right. And may I point out that dear President Trump has slapped a tariff on Apple as well. He slapped a tariff on, he's stripped away the rights of taking foreign citizens to Harvard University, and most likely Columbia will follow, and other universities. I said it's totally illegal, and courts have challenged it. Now, Trump is frankly, I think, heady with the power of the presidency in a way we didn't see during Trump 1.0. I think the second dose, after 4 years in which he was persecuted, he was prosecuted, and he was almost in jail. He only became a felon. Only charges were brought against him, and he didn't do jail time on that one charge that finally made it, and because he had become president by that time, and you can't do that to a president. So he's got a certain immunity during the 4 years he's in office, but frankly, I think dossiers are being prepared against him, and frankly, a lot of Republicans also quite unhappy with the way he's been talking completely out of line with overall US policy. Marco Rubio's policy on China, as he's expressed on so many occasions, is very different from Trump. Hexet's policies are very different from what Trump is saying now, which is equating Terrorism with the world's largest democracy. Absurd is too mild a word to use for that. But may I say, Megha, also finish by concluding by saying that don't take the UNSC seriously anymore. It was supposed to be a crown jewel in the UN system. Today, it's a completely failed to enforce anything because it's a deadlock. It's always in the permanent, it's 3 and 5 and 2, 3 and 2. Russia and China and the other 3 countries, France, Britain and the United States, usually voting together. So don't expect anything from the UNSC, the world's largest democracy, the soon to become the world's 3rd biggest economic power, the world's most populous country, doesn't have a permanent seat there. It's not going to have a permanent seat because the P5 they want a monopoly of that, and they want to keep it at 5. They'll never allow all 5 of them are going to agree. It will never happen, Megha.
Okay. Major General Shashi Asthana, thank you for waiting patiently, and a response from you with regards to how India should move forward. And as Professor Nalapat said, that India should not be reliant on the United Nations or the idea of putting Pakistan back into the FATF. What are the measures India has in its hand to safeguard its territory, but also to fight out any potential terrorist activities taking place in its soil coming from Pakistan?
India has proved and is expected to be confident. We are absolutely confident that we will deal with Pakistan on our terms. And I don't think any gesture by anybody, whether positively or negatively, should affect our resolve to deal with the terrorism problem of Pakistan or to deal with Pakistan as such. As far as other countries are concerned, including United States, the relationship has to be transactional. Some places we don't agree with each other. There are certain erratic decisions which President Trump has taken, which have been adequately talked about. So I won't go into that. But the fact is, there are certain other interests of us and United States which are common. And there I think we need to work, and we should continue to work. That's number one, because it is in our interest. So basically, if President Trump is looking at every country from the prism of his interest, we have to look at USA from the prism of our interest. Whatever he says or does, which does not suit us, let's ignore that and start concentrating only on what suits us and transact on that. And whatever, I think, whatever we need not absorb, that has been very appropriately rebuffed as well whether it is in terms of mediation, not agreeing to mediation, or not agreeing to any other kind of equations which he is trying to make out. As far as Pakistan is concerned and UNSC is concerned, I've served thrice in United Nations. It's a body which has perhaps lost its relevance long back, and I don't think you can expect any solutions there. And therefore, and also knowing the system well, I can comfortably say that if we go with conviction on any activity, UNSC has no clout to deter India from taking an action which we want to take in our national interest.
Right.
So we should look at our national interest. That's all I would like to say.
Okay, all right. On that note, I'm completely out of time, but I thank all of you for joining me, sharing your views on this very sensitive, important subject.